All right, so I just got back from watching How to Train Your Dragon, the 2025 live action remake. That's right, Disney no longer has a monopoly on live action remakes. DreamWorks and Universal are now placing their stake into it. And I am a big fan of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Not the biggest fan, okay? I haven't watched any of the Netflix shows or anything like that, but the three movies that came out, I really like. Especially the first one when I was younger. I actually, at one point, this is no longer true, but at one point, I had that whole movie memorized. The dialogue, word for word. I could quote the whole movie from beginning to end. It would drive my family insane. But whenever I was bored or I couldn't sleep at night, I would just close my eyes and start playing the movie. And I usually fell asleep within the first 10 minutes, but hey, it worked. So big fan, love the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. So I was not looking forward to this one because I do not like live action remakes. If you've seen my reviews of, especially lately, of Snow White and Lilo and Stitch, I just don't like the Disney ones. And the trailers did nothing to excite me. This looks like basically if Disney made a live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon. So now that I've seen it, I will say that it's not as bad as some of the live action Disney remakes, where they'll just change things or make bizarre choices where I'm just like, what on earth were you thinking? That never happened when I was watching this movie. I never once thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is awful. That being said, I still didn't like this movie, and it's mostly on principle. There's no point for this movie to exist beyond cashing in on people's nostalgia for the animated movie. Now, I made the mistake of rewatching the animated movie before watching this one. So, it was a movie I already know very well. I watched it again, and it's great, just as good as I remember it. And then I go and I watch an inferior version of it. Not hugely inferior, but still inferior. So I was still put in a bad mood because I'm sitting watching this movie and I'm just zoning out because I watched this movie last week basically, except it was better, you know? So I don't want to repeat myself with the stuff that I said about Snow White and Lilo and Stitch and stuff. But the reason why I say this is better than those is because it doesn't really change that much. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because the animated movie is already basically perfect. So if you're just doing a shot-for-shot, line-for-line remake of a perfect movie, your movie's going to be pretty decent too. So it got that going for it. But the reason why it's a bad thing is because it makes it so boring. I was so bored throughout this whole movie because I had literally seen this movie last week. They didn't add anything interesting. So these movies are either like they're all changing the wrong things or they're not changing enough. Like, how interesting would it have been to remake this movie but from a different perspective? You know, maybe from Astrid's point of view or something different, unique, you know? So it's the same How to Train Your Dragon movie, but this time Astrid's the main character and Hiccup's still doing his stuff with Toothless, but what is going on with Astrid's side of the story? How does she feel about all this, you know? And you can almost watch these movies back to back, where you have the animated movie that's about Hiccup and then the live action one that's about Astrid, and you know they combine in a clever ways. You know, you could do something like that. I was also thinking, imagine how, you know, they clearly want a sequel to this movie, and it's probably going to make a bunch of money, so we are going to get a sequel. But imagine if this movie started with a different sort of opening than the animated film did, where what if it starts with the dragons taking Hiccup's mom away, which they mention in this movie. They don't mention it in the animated one. But what if it starts with that, kind of like the beginning of Finding Nemo, where we figure out why Marlin is such a protective father to Nemo because of the tragedy that happens at the beginning of that movie. If we had a similar opening here, it would put Stoic's relationship with the dragons in a whole new context. But alas, we get the shot-for-shot remake. It could have been a lot worse, but it could have been a lot more interesting. This movie's just not very interesting. So yeah, I think I'm gonna be in the minority on this one. I usually don't read reviews before I film my own review because I don't want my opinion to be tainted, but I couldn't help myself for this one, and I did, and a lot of people seem to really appreciate the fact that it's a shot-for-shot remake. I'm not one of those people, so I guess I missed the boat on this one. But hey, that's just how I feel. I just, there's nothing here for me. It's perfectly fine, but I'd much rather watch the animated one, thank you. So, yeah. I think if you haven't seen the How to Train Your Dragon movies recently or at all, you would like this one fine. It's got cool flying, action, Toothless is cute, it's got all that stuff. So you'll probably like it just fine. If you are like me and you love the animated movie. You might hate it. I don't know. I don't hate this movie or anything. I just don't. It does nothing for me. It's just another version of this movie that exists. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the live action How to Train Your Dragon.